I'm Adrienne Rose.
I am Kane Roselle.
And I'm the art.
And I am the science
of transformation.
And we are Coast to Coach.
Hello, everyone. I am Adrienne Rose, and I am the art.
And my name is Kane Roselle, and I am the science of transformation.
And we are joined today by Mr. Josh Liteky. Thank you for being here today, Josh.
Thanks for having me. This is awesome, guys.
Absolutely. So grateful for you and your energy. So why don't you go ahead and just share a little bit about yourself, just who you are, your work you do in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a coach, but I've dubbed myself a bliss coach. And my background is I have 20 years as a meditation teacher. Last 5 years, I got into coaching. But to me, the ultimate, I kept asking myself, what is the basis of everything within ourselves? Because we ask the question, who am I, right, all the time? And we can get lost in the ever-changing aspects of life, all the stuff we got going on. We got our programming, this and that. And about 20 years ago, I had what we refer to as the dark night of the soul. I was in my late 20s. I kind of was at a point where I was like lost, hadn't really had my full spiritual awakening yet, very depressed, very anxious, kind of suicidal at that point in my life. And I just had a moment where I sat down and I said, God, universe, whatever, what's the deal here? You know, if this is all there is endless suffering going on, I'm out. I don't want any more of this. And so my aunt at the time actually introduced me to a very particular meditation technique that I learned, and it opened up just a whole field of silence and bliss within myself. So much so that it became like, oh, there actually is more going on, and it's like inside. So for the past 20 years, I've really developed that and learned other aspects and skills to share that, have the ability to share that with the world. So ultimately, I became a coach to share this knowledge with as many people as possible, because we all have it inside of us. It's not based on any particular religion, background, color, creed, anything. It's like that spiritual quantum place that we have inside. So it's really about coming to how to access that. And then the question is, because, we hear about this all the time. We all are one with, connected with everything. I'm the source. But then my question I've been asking myself is, okay, great. How do I get it? How do I live it and actually create in the real world? And that's really what I've come to. And it's a growing process. I'm not saying I'm there fully, but I've learned a lot and grown a lot in that 20 years up till now, to where I can really share and impact people in a very profound way. So ultimately, that's what I want to share with the world, is that we are so much more than we realize. We are bliss at our base level, because we can get to a point inside beyond all the chaos, beyond all the programming, beyond all the stuff that we deal with, emotions on a daily basis. What's left? Who am I? Peace, love, joy, all the good stuff. So that's really what I want to share and tap into.
And of course, like, what you end up realizing is that you've got to live with the end in mind. When you say, who am I? That's kind of like, well, what happens afterwards?
Right.
Exactly. Because if it's true that you only have one life, let's say that that's true, because we don't know. But if that were true, then wouldn't it make the most sense to spend that one life in service to whatever the ultimate reality is?
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, it strikes me as not amusing in a negative way, but amusing nonetheless in the way that deep truths often are. Isn't it interesting that you can literally spend your whole life getting to know yourself? Mm-hmm. And yet, who should know you better? Nobody.
Right. Exactly. Because, that's right. And very few people go into themselves, because as soon as they open that door, it's like all the negativity and stuff that we've been living comes up, and they're like, oh no, not going there. I'm going to keep myself busy and occupied and da-da-da. So as we're kind of in this time right now of quarantine, kind of people are more forced to be with themselves and perhaps open that door. It can be kind of scary, So like you said, Kane, it's a process, and it could be a lifelong process. And as you mentioned, it's sequential, because the first thing is, okay, who am I? Well, okay, great, I'm this person, I can do this. But then it's a matter of taking it to the next level. What do I do about it? How can I create the life that I really want versus have to, or program to, within the field of life? Because we have that ability. Most of us, life lives us. But as we learn all of these things, we can actually create from that consciousness and direct it to create amazing lives that we can really feel of accomplishment, that we're doing something really good, we're living fully, our health is great. Like the term I refer to is called 200% of life. It's like, for most of us, we chase the outer. It's like all about, once I have the wife, the kids, the money, the car, then I can be happy, right? The temporary stuff. And then we may get some of that stuff and we say, okay, I'm happy, but does the happiness last? No, it kind of goes away. And we're always chasing. But then where's that other 100%? Inside. And so when we start to access the bliss inside, we can have it all. We can be innerly happy and grow. And so it's kind of a different way. It's a more full way of being than most of us live life by. But it's a process, right? And so even opening that door to, hey, this is, who am I really? We start to peel the layers away. Am I my job? Am I my da-da-da? So yeah, it definitely is part of the deal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. One thing I love about you, Josh, is your energy and your positive energy and your light. You're definitely love and light. And I know you mentioned earlier that you went through, a dark night of your soul. I went through one as well. I know Kane has gone through one. And to me, it seems like we almost have to go through that in order to truly know the light. So do you agree with that? What would you say about that? Because I know there's a lot of people right now that are in very dark spaces and don't necessarily know that, hey, the light is coming. And in fact, to me, people ask me often, am I always this happy? And I say, well, I used to not be, but I am now because I was in such a dark space at one point. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a process. It's a daily process. I mean, we always struggle. We're humans. We have our emotions and we go through stuff. But to your point, we don't know the full light until we experience the full darkness. And until we go through something like that, and it's really hard, very difficult. It's the most traumatic experience of my whole life. While you're in it, you don't maybe see the light. You don't know that there's a light coming through it. You're so overwhelmed by it that you want it to stop. The pain is so intense, can be sometimes, and that's why sometimes people look to things like, suicidal thoughts and things like that, because they don't see the light. So in those moments where we are most overshadowed by the darkness, we have to just tell ourselves, faith, whatever you want to call it, there is a light. We will get through this. But having gone through it and looking back, I can say, yes, it was the best gift of my life. I will never experience something as traumatic as that again. I've kind of been through that. But you don't know that till you've been through it. So for anybody that's going through something like that right now, absolutely. Just take a moment in right now and just breathe and just say, yes, there is a light to this. I don't know where it is. I can't see it yet. But it's critical because there is a light to it. And you don't fully appreciate the light until you have that full experience. Absolutely.
And I would say, too, that having coaches as mentors or something like that is so valuable, because in a similar way to words like love, for example, that kind of get thrown around in our society, and so that they lose the depth of feeling and understanding that they really do entail. And so, for example, when a person's going through these dark nights, they may hear things like it gets better, right? But when you're going through that and you hear something like that, you're like, yeah, that's nonsense. Like, I'm not even in a place to hear that right now.
Right.
But having somebody that can help you, that has specialized knowledge in what it's like to go through that and what it means, to take it as an opportunity for really a quantum leap. And I know that when you're in grieving, for example, if it's that type of a dark night where you're really in loss or whatever the case may be, there is a certain period of time that has to go by before your mind is ready to open up to growth and things like that. But it's better for you to be in position to recognize that point sooner than later, so that you don't lose time, because it's such a precious commodity that we all share.
Right.
So do you have both group and one-on-one sessions? Do you do classes or master classes, workshops? What is your format?
Full spectrum. So the way I start it with is just a conversation. Adrian's very familiar with the strategy session process. We sit down, we have a conversation. And from that point, I can ascertain with the client, potential client, hey, is there a connection here? What work can we do? So it can be very individualized through the entire process. If somebody just needs a few sessions to kind of get back to what you're just saying, a place of being good, awesome. if they want an entire class, group coaching sessions like that. So it's really what's available. I have it all, but it's really tailored to each individual case because we're all different and we're all coming from different places and perspectives. And so it's really full suite. As we know, and I want to reach as many people as possible, but at the same time, I want to have a powerful impact because I'm not like, I'm going to save the world. No, it's like we're all connected with who we can help, and people are going to attract. You know, I can put the message out there like anybody, and there's going to be people that connect with it and people that don't. But as you said, Kane, it's a very good point. You know, a person can be overshadowed by what they're going through in the moment, and it's essential sometimes even just to have a helping hand. You know, they may not look for coaching, you know, or in that moment. It's like if somebody just kind of like I had it in my life with my mom, actually. She saved my life. And she said, you know, I know you're going through this, but it'll be better. And she was there with me in my darkest time. So to have somebody like that, whether it's a coach, a mentor, a friend, to be with you, because those are some of the hardest times to be alone in those dark places, because if we don't have anywhere to turn and we get overshadowed by this stuff, you know, it can be brutal. And that's why it's just essential to, even if a person says, I need help, some kind of help, somebody, you know, reaching out. And so it's critical to be together and have that.
Yeah. Thank you for being that person for people. I think Bliss Man is going to save the world though, personally. So.
Well, some world, you know, it's like, yeah, it's
parts of the world for sure. Yep. We're all a puzzle, right?
We're all connected, right? Yeah. And bliss is not like, when I say blissful, it's not like all of a sudden, oh, I'm happy all the time. You know, I mean, do you know anybody that's happy all the time? You know, I don't know. Maybe if they're not on anything, but it's the ability to have an inner unshakable silence inside, regardless, because we're human. We're going to have ups and downs, but instead of we get to a place where we can be either completely shadowed by stuff, or have a part of us that we know that's also unshakable in our. Yeah. In ourselves within. And sometimes that's time, experience, and life itself, but having access to, because everything's inside, you know, but I circle back to what I was saying before earlier, happiness doesn't exist out here. Love doesn't exist out here. It's all an inner thing. It's all in here, you know? Yes. So having that access is important.
Absolutely. I always consider it like, I remember that moment, actually, it was probably about 8 years ago, where I felt like there was this, like almost a tornado around me, and I was just in the middle of it in peace, like in bliss, basically. So life around me was chaotic, kind of like right now what's going on with COVID. And it's not always easy, right? But I feel like I'm just this power strength in the eye of this storm going on. And I remember the moment that happened for me, and I was like, wow, being able to navigate that. And of course, I'm not perfect at it. I've had my moments, but I know for me, you know, because it sounds like we've all been doing this work, because I know Kane too, for about 20 years. So collectively, we have 60 years, you know, of this work, which is amazing between us. And I know for me personally, mentors have, of course, helped me. Like when I was ready, I first did therapy after my dark night, and then went to coaching, and all of a sudden all these coaches started appearing in my life. And I just said yes. And anytime my intuition said yes to work with a coach, bam. And I think I worked with about 8 wow. in about, different modalities in about 3 years, actually. Wow. And then of course and then I knew, I'm going to be a coach. This is why I never used my psych degree in that fashion. So for you, what has been the impact mentors have made in your journey, your life?
Critical. I mean, essential. I whatever more powerful word there is, because we as human beings tend to have, I know it all, I can do this and this, and I was this way too. But when there's somebody that is exhibiting some quality that I wanted, be it a coach, a mentor, it was opening my door. It's like, I want what that person has. So why wouldn't I let myself learn from him or her? And I've had so many. But there was a moment where I said, I'll just learn what I need to do from this book and that experience, and I got it all, I'm good. But then my results in life were not supporting that. It's like all just knowledge in my head. So at some point I realized, okay, I'm not really where I want to be with my life. This person over here has that. I want to learn from them. You know, so it's absolutely essential, because we're all on a path. There's people farther along on the path. There's people behind us. None of us are perfect, but there's always somebody that we can learn something from. So it's very important to have mentors and coaches in your life, and for everything, you know, the physical, the mental, the spiritual. I'm exercise, I want to get ripped. I'm not anywhere near it yet. I'm going to go somebody that's ripped. Teach me how to do that, or work on whatever I'm good at, what I'm good at. But then there's lots of areas that we can all grow too. So yeah, very important.
I would say too that, the inside voice gives the outside voice power, because, I was watching a really good lecture from a rapper known as KRS-One, been around for a long time. But what he said that was so darn powerful is he started with that, saying that, this inside voice is the voice that shapes reality. It's the one that affects big change. Because here's the thing, is once you're in alignment with your inside voice, when the mouth moves, it's no longer just a shell talking.
Right.
You see, there's a being in there.
Yeah.
And that being is a tremendous source of power. And so when you live your life from the inside out, but in connection to whatever your higher purpose or self is, you become immensely powerful. And one of my favorite things about it is realizing that so many people are living and they're not even in touch with their own core values. So what happens when that happens is you're no longer acting in sync. But Bob Proctor often teaches that you're always existing on 3 planes of reality simultaneously. That's mind, body, and spirit, okay? If any one of those is out of sync, you lose effectiveness. And of course, if it's a core value that's out of sync, then you're really in trouble. There's story after story of not only how instant gratification really messes with a person, but even when they make big moves that are often contemplated in a big way, strategized or whatever, they go and they get whatever the result is that they're going after. But the thing that they're missing on the inside of it, whatever that solace was, whatever that reward was, that well-being or whatever, is missing. And it's so profoundly impactful that you would think that, like, hey, I did this great big thing. Look at all this. It explains why money doesn't buy happiness, right?
Right.
You go through all of this effort to get whatever that achievement is, but in somewhere you were out of whack. And so you're no longer acting with synchronicity. You know what I mean?
Perfectly said. Yep.
And so it is, the inside voice empowering the outside voice.
Right.
One of the ways that I see it is that the mind is sort of like a transmitting station. It receives whatever is coming in through the more subtle energies, and it's like a converter, okay? Because the body is an instrument of the mind. Whatever the mind tells it to do, it does.
Right.
So then when we talk about manifestation, it quite literally is taking whatever is floating around up here and transmuting it into the physical through that process. It is still a physical process. It's the reason why you don't go into a meditation and then open your eyes and like there's not gold on your desk.
Right.
Because all you're doing is you're setting up a bridge of incidents, as Neville Goddard would say. You're setting up a natural bridge of incidents for the thing that you want to happen. But if you're out of alignment with your core values, then you're not going to get what you want. How many times have we heard it, right? Like, be careful what you wish for.
Right. Exactly. Or even when you do get it, like you said, you're kind of like, meh. It's really like the impact is just like, okay, I got this car, but beautifully said. I mean, that's just one of the things I really emphasize on. It's the inner that creates the outer. It's like we're all outer oriented, but we have to that's kind of like the biggest paradigm shift that I help people with in the beginning, is to shift that awareness to that inner awareness, because inside is all that stuff, the basis of it. And like you said, the alignment is critical based on that, because if we don't have that, we're all over the place chasing, whatever this and that to get to the fulfillment, because ultimately that's what we're looking for. We're always vacillating between fulfillment or avoiding pain, but finding that fulfillment, where's the unshakable, everlasting inner fulfillment? That's what bliss is all about, that inner core, that core value of all of us. So yeah, what you said is just amazing. Spot on.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's why he's the science, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you guys make a good team.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. That's what I love about this format, right? Is because we're all very different teaching styles and, you know, and I know that different things speak to different people, right? Like Bob Proctor, and I love Bob Proctor.
I love Bob Proctor. Listen to him every day.
Yeah. But sometimes his stuff just goes over my head, and then Mary Morrissey will teach the same thing, and bam, I just get it.
You got it.
And I know Kane is opposite, of course, sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I love this. So if you were to have, because you have so much wisdom, if you were to be able, you know, say nobody gets to ever speak to you, which of course we hope they do, and you were to give them one bit of wisdom, like one thing to learn in life that they could take away. And I know there's a lot, so that can be a challenge to get to one core thing, but what would be your one core thing message that you would share with people?
You are bliss.
Love it.
I mean, that's the simple truth of it all. At the basis of all of us, if we peel away all the layers, programming, we're not suffering. We're not painful. We're supposed to be living in bliss, expansion, have all the good stuff that we dream about. That's a simple, profound basis of everything. And just as a person can meditate on that, think about that, honor that, even if they don't believe it, just say, I am bliss. Even saying it will kind of tickle the soul a little bit. So yeah, I would say that.
I once heard a good correction to the term dark night of the soul. And it touches on exactly what you're saying, that, you know, we are bliss. And so the correction was, it's actually dark night of the ego. Because in soul world, everything is all good.
Right. That's right. Exactly
dark night
right.
of the ego.
Dark night of the ego. Right.
And I was like, man, I wish I thought of that, because that's so good.
It's so good, because that's exactly right. Everything that we think, it's all individual. Like we have our individual ego, but then there's like cosmic universal ego. So the dark night of the ego, the soul, think of it as like the biggest badass storm that can overshadow you in every possible way. But what's beyond that? Beyond that is a field of bliss, because if the bliss field didn't exist, none of this would exist. So you go beyond the darkest possible darkest, because the darkness is the illusion. The truth is the bliss.
I love that. That's so powerful. One of my favorite quotes from Dr. Wayne Dyer is that enlightenment is the ego's biggest disappointment.
That's awesome.
That's fantastic. Yeah, because the ego has to die, really, to get to that place. You know, you surrender. And that's a process of always surrendering. We think we have this much control in our life, but when you really whittle it down, how much really is it? You know, just a little tiny bit. And we control how we react and how we think, basically. And so, yeah, and once you kind of merge, that's the whole process of enlightenment, is non-attachment, to be like, oh, okay, what's left?
Absolutely. One of the most powerful things I've been taught out of all the years, because I've shared before, with having my degree in psychology, I actually had to unlearn my psych degree in order to have a life I love, because I would get in this analysis paralysis and listen to my mind, right, and not my intuition. And of course, in meditation, I learned, and it took me a long time to be able to dive into meditation, because my mind was, of course, thinking it was supposed to be different and this and that. And one thing, like I teach my clients, and when I've seen it in action, is that because lots of times we have this different idea of what the ego is, right? Is that our ego's job is to cause us anxiety. And when I really like sunk into that, I was like, holy cow, because I see it in action in people's lives and then in my life. So it's easy for me to dip in and go, okay, am I an ego thinking right now, or is my spirit in charge here? How do you describe the ego to people? So if somebody doesn't know what the ego is, how would you describe it?
I kind of refer to it as like an inner voice. I even I call it a gremlin. You know, that's just that person or thing that's inside you, always talking to you, blah, 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 saying this or that or not, blah. So I put a name to it, you know, whatever they want to call it, or just kind of make it personal and say, okay, you know, we all have this inner voice that talks to us. You know, you talk about it from a brain perspective, it's the survival level stuff, but just basically try and keep it as simple as possible. And then, like you describe yourself, because you've done so much work, it's creating that level of awareness. So, because most of us, we just react to it. It's like little voice talking, blah, blah, blah. Well, when we have a moment of awareness to say, you know what, there's another side of me too, the quote unquote spiritual big S, you know, big ego self, whatever you're going to call it, then they can kind of get into no more an observer perspective. You can say, yep, there's that voice. And as your awareness grows, you have some separation there. So I kind of start with that process to identify how we all have this, and it's in control. But guess what? This other part of you, your soul self, right, wants to wingspan and all that stuff. So it's kind of like a battle for a while. But with that awareness, it grows to leaning more to the soul side, because the ego is always going to be there, right? It's always going to fight for its survival and stuff like that. But as you've developed in yourself and people that do this work for a while, we have these tools to say, who's really doing the thinking here in the moment? And ability to say, well, I can listen to this programmed ego person, or I can listen to my big Josh self, or whatever your name is. That's kind of start, because it's a process. None of this stuff happens overnight. It's like, it's a process to retrain all of our brains. We're all programmed and have conditioning. And it's like a CD playing over and over and over. Tony Robbins says we think the same 60,000 thoughts, 95% every single day of what we thought yesterday. So yeah, we create our own life, but most of us do it unconsciously. And so it's the ability to give the tools and say, okay, there's this part of you, your ego, your intellect, whatever, but there's also this other part that really wants to be in control.
Yeah.
Have all the good stuff.
I love that. I say it's the devil and the angel for me, because it's like the devil, like, even though it's not evil, but it's that little voice, and it can be unkind sometimes. And then of course the voice of our soul, of our intuition is never ever unkind to people. Or to us, right? It always talks very gently to us, very quiet. But it is very interesting that a lot of people don't know how to hear. They don't know. They can't hear that voice. And especially with all the noise of the world, that's why I think meditation is so important. Is with all the noise of the world and the fear of the world, to just quiet so we can hear that voice, right? Yeah, totally. Kane, how would you describe ego? Just curious from the science standpoint.
Animal mind. It's the part of us that goes to survival, to make sure that we live. So the ego mind's main responsibility is to keep things safe and predictable so that your survival needs are met, right? And so it operates very, very keenly on the five senses for that reason, but it does not deal well with the unseen forces. And, it's amusing to me. I want to piggyback just a moment off of what Adrian was just saying. It's amusing to me that we listen to the ego mind so much, because it really is so very rude. Right? I mean, I often
somebody you wouldn't invite to most parties.
It's true. And people resonate very quickly when I say, listen, most people that I know wouldn't talk to regular other people the way that they talk to themselves. And everybody, oh yeah, I know, it's crazy, right? And it's amusing to me and sad in the same way, because you look at the detriment of listening to the ego mind. It is so rude, and yet we have to focus and still that sucker, because it's so what's the word? It's so chaotic and rambunctious, right? It really wants attention. It is the squeaky wheel. It really is. Yeah. Okay? It's amusing to me and sad when I look at its repercussions that we have to consciously shut that thing up so that we can become still to listen to the voice that actually makes us feel good. Right. Isn't that kind of a weird paradox?
It's totally bizarre. Yeah, I always go back to that one-liner that says, the mind makes a terrible master, but a great servant. And we're so used to listening to that ego being in charge, in control, and it wants to be in control. We're like its victim, and that's that shift. And that's why thought work is the hardest work to do. I mean, it's a daily basis. It's every moment. It's not like, oh, my mind's fixed, I'm good. It's a constant process, because that sucker's in there just blah, 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 all the time.
Yep. It was interesting when I first started coaching. When I first left my international team to coach on my own, I thought I was going to only coach women. And then the universe kept bringing me men, which I love. I love coaching men. It makes sense. I grew up with all men. And then I started to realize after a little while, it's because I do very well with the ego, and one thing I noticed, and this is not a man-woman thing, is men's egos talk to you way harsher than women's do. I was like, holy cow, when some of my clients started to tell me, because women's do too, but it's more like, oh, my ass is fat, versus like, really like, you dumbass. Blah,
you're a loser,
blah, blah.
you can't. Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
wow.
Oh okay. My goodness. So I love what you do, Josh. It's so important, because you have such a well rounded, just tools to be able to help people to really be able to get that inner bliss. And it's just wonderful because with the meditation and with your 20 years of experience and with everything that you know. So thank you, of course, for being on here today. And so let me ask you, what is the best way for people to get in touch with you if they would love to connect with you?
Just go to my website, www.blissmancoaching.com. So it's a new website. I have a video there, ways to opt in, check in. It's growing all the time, but that's the easiest way to connect with me.
Very good. Very good. And I do encourage people to do that because you've got such a unique service, a way of being, like your personality, your energy. It's easy to see like you're definitely different than me, but needed, and different than Adrian, but needed. One of my favorite things about our show here is that we get to just interview all different kinds of people to not only say to the audience, like, yes, you can do it. Here's why, here's how, and here's like a bunch of different types of resources and ways to look when we talk about the ego mind and things like that. It's so cool to hear your perspective on things. I'm extremely grateful that you came on. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for that. And I thank you guys for the opportunity to share an important message at this time and for the work that you guys do, continuing to connect with other coaches out there and just grow and expand and helping lots of people. So it's a beautiful thing you guys do.
Thank you. Thank you. What that I want to share really quick, because I believe this is true for all of us, is that if you connect with any of us, right, because we're so connected, I know for me, it's part of my platform because I know so many coaches in the world, which I'm very grateful for, that say somebody connects with you, somebody connects with me. You touched on it earlier, that if you're not the right fit for them, that we can actually connect them with somebody most likely who is. Sure. Right? Because all of us too understand energy and being so connected as we are. And I do that. I mean, it's usually if the universe connects me with somebody, it's the right fit, but it has happened where it's like, hey, Josh would be a better coach for you. So I just want to put that out there for people that if your intuition, your heart is telling you to reach out to Josh, to myself, to Kane, and we're not the right fit, that's okay, right? That we're going to do our best to connect you with somebody who is.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think too that really is the modality that all industries should share, right? Because not every business is the same. So it doesn't matter to me, if you're a bank person or a car dealership. That was one of the things. I sold cars for a little while. I hated it. I get it. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, if people aren't buying from you, it's a fast way to go under, especially when you're moving merchandise at that ticket value. I get it. However, we were talking about core values earlier and being in alignment and bigger purpose, right? So if a person is in touch with who and what they are and their why for doing the thing, it seems to me that even though you see your own service as like something anybody can use, while the tools and methodologies may even be similar, hypothetically, the person, the presenter, is very different. Mm-hmm. And that makes all the difference. To give you an example, like, I'm kind of a unique guy, like everybody, right? And I created a group on Facebook, Mental Mindset Masters. Why? Because even though I'm a dream builder coach, and I understand those tools and principles of transformation very well, what naturally comes out of me and the people that really resonate with that's a unique group of people. And if I got somebody that doesn't fit the mold of the person that's going to receive the information from me, and I know Josh or Adrian or a slew of other people, or even if they're not ready for coaching, they're ready for therapy, because it's just, and I don't mean that in an insult, it kind of sounds a certain way, because there is still some level of stigma about that. But there is a certain point that therapy brings a person to, and then they're really ready for coaching, if therapy is required. Of course, it's not always required. So I do mean that in a holistic wellness kind of a way. But whatever it is, whatever your industry is, man, you should like really just do people a service. I work for a convenience store chain up here for a long time called Cumberland Farms. And at the time, the CEO, Ari Hasiotis, I loved his perspective. Now, there's no secret that the convenience store industry is perceived to be very low level. It's in and out. They're grungy and they're dirty. But he believed that we are in the people business. We just happen to sell gas. We're in the people business. We just happen to sell food. We just happen to sell lottery tickets or whatever. People come first, you see. So I just wanted to share that with you all because it's such, I really wish and strive to have happen that this sort of cross-pollination, if you will, amongst all industries happens, because not everybody is created equal. In fact, that may be the only way that we're all the same, right, is that we're all different, right?
Right. No, it's so true. It's the service coming from service. And Adrian, I appreciate this because one thing that Mary Morrissey always said, give, then ask. You know, it's like a universal law. You just serve first, help the, you know, like you're saying, we're not maybe not the right coach for this person. I want to help this person. You guys want to help this person. Bob, it'd be better for you. We're serving that person best. So yeah, absolutely. Everything's a people business. That was such a good thing to hear you say.
Love
Thank
it.
you. Yeah.
Yeah. It's beautiful. I believe that too, that we don't need to compete with each other no matter what, right? It's also like that, it's a universal law. There's enough abundance to go around, and God knows
8 billion people in the world. They all
exactly. Absolutely. And there's enough abundance in love, right? Finance.
Oh yeah. Endless.
Clients.
Endless. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, thank you again so much. I very much appreciate you and know that you're incredible at what you do. So thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Our pleasure.
And just for our typical end of episode challenge, Adrian has a challenge, for whatever reason, right? Saying the name of this podcast, it just doesn't flow well. So let's see how it's going.
Yes. Josh and I actually got to work together at one point. So Josh probably saw me laugh at myself at various times. I love to laugh at myself. So what's my challenge, Kane?
Can you say, I don't want to say, I don't want to drop any hints. I'm going to be greedy with the hints.
Help me.
C2C.
Coast to coach.
Hey, you did it. Beautiful. It is getting better.
I think that was my best one yet.
I want to hear some of the flubs.
Oh, goodness.
I would say coach to coast to coach to coach to, like, yeah.
Yep.
She sits upon a sheet. You ever tried that one?
Yeah. That's a tricky one.
Yeah. Well, you know.
Seashells. Yeah.
But you're right. You know, one of my favorite things about Adrienne is that she loves to laugh and have a good time, and she's very humble. And so even though we joke about that at the end of the episode, it really is a special testament to whatever it is that's giving you trouble in life, to approach it with humor and gentleness, because it's just going to make it so much better, funner, and easier for you to move past whatever the block is.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's best, you know, in the moment of the storms overshadowing, how still are you? How easily can you laugh?
There you go.
That's
Love it.
Growth right there.
Love it. Beautiful. Well done. Well, thank you all.
All right, everybody.
Blessings to everybody.
Thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing everybody on the next episode. Take care.